Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one, it's another union event, so you're going to want to at least make sure you're in a union that can attack the boss pretty reasonably, especially considering the fact that the prizes for this is actually quite good. Because, especially you're working for fire or water. Because of how strong these weapons actually can be, it's definitely worth it. So you're going to want to participate in this one more than anything else. But also, I have to point out, this is one of the very rare times you're up against Phantom Element, which is the rare 7th element in the game. So you got to keep that in mind, that you can use anybody, literally anybody, like any element, and it'll work out for you. Now, there's a bit of interesting strategy with this, but I will get to that in a second. I do have to point out that with the Union event, the typical thing is to get the Divine Rings, use them to increase your own output because it'll give you some buffs, and then you basically go through the thrones to get those Divine Rings, then you go through the Seraphs in order to get the main meat of the prizes. Now, I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but I still feel a need to mention this again. But these buffs are actually quite strong. So, the actual effects, there's a list of effects right here, but I know them basically by heart. But when it comes to the different types of buffs, there is 8 of them that you can actually put these Divine Rings towards, and you can go up to 100 on each one, but you can only use up to 400 rings in one day. Now, the 8 buffs happen to be Attack Power, which is basically Assault, HP, which is basically more Defender, Burst Damage. This does not increase the cap. This increases the amount the burst multiplier goes for you, and even that has a limit. There's a Healing buff, which basically increases the cap. If you've already hit the healing cap, this is useless for you. There's Double Attack, there's Triple Attack, there's debuff Resistance, and also a buff that will increase your chances of landing debuffs. Now, generally speaking, it is not worth going after the debuff ones at all, especially since there's now a counter mechanic against some of the stuff where you can stall for turns and whatnot. A lot of resistances towards these things are going to start popping up the more they land, so it's going to get worse as the fight progresses. So the old cheese strat of trying to basically spam stun or paralyze, it's not going to work as well as it used to if you even try it. But it all depends on what your union decides to do. Sometimes unions will still go for the strategy. However, the buffs that definitely can help you, absolutely, the attack and the HP buffs. Those will give you more Assault and more Defender. I would suggest getting one of the combo buffs. Either one can work, or even both if you want to get that, because they give you such a massive boost of triple attack and double attack that it's very, very noticeable. Now, the ones that are kind of situational as well happen to be the burst one and the healing one, because in my case, the burst one is useless because of the fact that I'm already capable of hitting the burst caps on my own without assistance. And the healing one, like I said, it's useless if you've already got enough ascension anyway, so there's that. But they can be helpful, depending on the union and who's actually in it and whatnot. The stronger unions will ignore the healing buff. But generally, the more common ones that are picked are the attack, the HP, the burst, and one or both of the combo ones. So those are the ones to go for. Now, if you're wondering how much each does, it is based on how many levels you put into it with those rings. So if you max it out, and keep in mind, this is divisible by 100, but if you max it out, attack, defender, well, attacking the HP, I should say. Attack, HP, healing, and burst all go up to 150%. So it is basically 1.5 for each level. Now, when you come to the combo ones, this is why I say they're very good. Double attack up to 50%, and triple attack up to 30%. That is a huge boost in your combo rates. Either one you take. Now, preferably, I would take the triple attack, but there's that. As for the debuff rate and the debuff resistance, those numbers have never been found out because it is very, very hard to pinpoint exactly how these are with hard numbers. But you typically can ignore the resistance period point blank. And as for the debuff rate, it's only really good if you try that paralyzed strat, and even then it will start losing its edge the more you do it in the same fight. So there's that. But anyways, these do stack with your grit effects as well. So if you have, like, say 200% assault, then that's going to give you another 150 on top of it, so you now have 350. Or if you have 100% defender, you now have 250%. It stacks with all that type of stuff. Same thing with the burst as well, because remember that your exceed boosts both the damage you do with burst as well as the cap. So these will stack with your grit effects. I feel a very strong need to mention these because of the fact that these are very, very important with every Union event. So do not slack on those if you're really trying to deal out some damage and trying to get a lot of kills. Now, when it comes to the actual fights themselves, Thrones, you can send anybody into those raids. Friends, Union members, you can get in yourself, even random people. It's basically suggested to do that with just your Union, or even on your own if you're strong enough, because they're really not all that hard once you get stronger. So that said, it's more important to just share them to your Union. Now, if you do have people in your Union on your friends list, you can take the risk of sharing that as well. But with the fact that we now have raid ID, I don't feel like there's a point to that anymore. So really try to keep that strictly Union if you're trying to make the most of it. Especially since any Union member that participates in it will also get their own set of rings as rewards, and it'll all add to the pool. So instead of getting to like 3 or 5, you'll get like 6 or 8 or however many people jumped in with. Now, as for the Seraph, you can never, ever fight with friends or random people. So you're strictly Union on that. More so, these take BP regardless, so you will need a lot of energy seeds if you're trying to get a lot of stuff done. So that's why I suggested in a previous event where you stock up on different refill items, because seeds are definitely one of them. Also, going into the event page, you'll get energy leaves as well every single day. So you'll get like 1 leaf a day. So it's not like they won't give you some stuff. It's just the fact that it's more efficient just to already have your own stockpile. Now, as for the fights themselves, they're split between two difficulties on each one. So, standard and expert for the Thrones, expert and ultimate for the Seraph. Now, for the Thrones, 700,000 HP on standard, and a little bit over 2.5 million on expert. And the whole trick with her is the fact that it's basically going to deal damage and a random debuff on you. Now, if the turn count is anything other than max, it's going to try and keep its mode gauge going. So keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to the raging nuke is phantom damage to everybody. So the whole deal with this fight is more just raging phase by the looks of it. However, it's not really listed if this will keep increasing the mode gauge even in raging, because some fights actually did that before. But you gotta keep in mind, it can do all that. Now, when it comes to the Seraph fight, it is based on how many times you have killed them. So they will get stronger the more you kill them. So these are the actual values for HP, and it's based on how hard the fight is. Now that said, you still want to kill it as much as possible, of course. Be very, very careful considering the fact that this is phantom damage that you're taking from both fights, because it is counted as weakness damage regardless of who it hits, unless a phantom element hits the same element, and that's never going to happen except for some very rare exceptions where you really should just avoid that. But as for the Seraph fight, this is where it gets pretty interesting. Now, its normal nuke is going to, when it has full orbs, it's going to do large damage to one character, and it will randomly hit 5 times in raging. The interesting parts is where the triggers come in. Now, if it is in any mode other than stun, then that's where this random debuff thing will kick in. It's not going to be for a normal nuke. It is now officially a trigger, so it will happen every single time it doesn't have full orbs. So be very, very careful with that. Now, the very, very interesting part. If you happen to attack her, as in with normal attacks or a burst, and it's hit by 3 different elements, you yourself will end up getting a damage increase buff, which will work for the next turn. Now, this is where it gets interesting because of the fact that it sort of tempts you into dealing with multiple elements on your team. There is only one situation where this would actually help you out, and that is if your strongest team does not have 100% Eidolon. And if you have a very, very strong grade, you can even include the Guardian Eidolons with that as well. Because that's where the strategy of taking SSR Diablos would actually help you out. Where you take 3 Kamihime up the element for that grid you have. Like say you have a very strong fire grid. You take 3 fire Kamihime. Then take 2 from different elements, like say water or wind. And you use SSR Diablos. Now, in order to really make the most of it, it is better to have your own SSR Diablos, but it can still work with a friend one. But if you have 100% Eidolon, and in some cases even a Guardian, it's better to just use them and ignore this. Now, it is unknown how big this buff really is. I'm going to personally play around with it myself. So if I do notice it's a very, very large damage increase, then I'm going to give you another video with that one. But considering the fact that my grid is so strong, I'm going to hit the caps anyway if I do that setup, so it'll be very hard to tell. Now, for those of you that do know about how SSR Diablos works, this could potentially help you out. However, I wouldn't suggest going immediately for that strategy. It's more of a case of try to play around with things and see what actually does more damage, because if you're already hitting the damage caps, it shouldn't matter. If you're pretty close to the caps, then SSR Diablos is going to probably push you to them anyways. At least for the on-element characters. I don't know about the off-element. So, that's a good way to try and test it out. I would say to do it on, like, a day where you don't have buffs in order to play around with it, so you can actually go for a day where you do have the union buffs and have the best strategy possible to do the most damage. It's something to consider. Again, don't try to make it your intentional strategy unless it does actually work out to give you more damage. Because the main concept of the game is typically to have all same element. This is one of the rare times where it might actually help to have multiple. It all depends on what you have and what you can do. Now, as for the random debuffs, there is a total of 7 different ones that can happen, and some of these are very, very bad. So you really have to be careful about this. There is paralysis, which is always annoying. and that lasts for 2 turns. Poison, which lasts for 3 turns and does 1000 per tick. It's not really that bad. Frozen, and as it implies, it's going to pretty much freeze you. Now, I don't know, this is the version from a later fight where it freezes your cooldowns as well. So like if you use an ability, it's not going to tick down after the turn goes by. Either way, you do not want to get hit with Frozen either. Curse, that's preventing you from healing. Darkness is basically blind, so there's that, and that's going to start lasting for 4 turns. This is where the 4-turn stuff kicks in. Illusion is basically dizzy with how this gets translated, and then Restraint is a really, really bad one. Restraint, I believe, prevents you from using bursts or abilities, one of the two, but that's a really bad one to get hit with as well. Despite all of this stuff, I still say do not get the debuff protection because it is going to ruin a whole bunch of different damage setups. Instead, you want to bring your own debuff protection or debuff removal. That's the trick to this. Excuse me. So, the whole thing is that you'll get hit with these at random. But it's only to one character. That's a saving grace with this. So you'll never see two characters, more than 2 characters get paralysis at one time. And you'll never see more than 3 characters get poisoned, frozen, or cursed at the same time. However, the other ones last for 4 turns, and that's where it can get pretty bad if it starts spamming these. So, if you're not lucky, you can see things go very, very badly with those. Having like 4 people with Restraint is going to really, really ruin you. So, depending on what you get hit with is when you probably want to start removing debuffs. But keep in mind that the debuffs remove the oldest one first. So, you have to be very, very careful of that. Now, when it comes to the fight, they suggest the whole Diablos thing like I said. However, again, it still depends on what you can do. SSR Diablos is best used with 3 characters that are the same element, and you focus all of those 3 to be the damage dealers, while the other 2 run any sort of support. Like, for instance, you can have, say, a Thunder setup where you have 3 Thunder characters dealing damage. You have, say, SSR Firearm to buff everybody, and then you have, say, I would say just somebody random like Nikke Unleashed or Aphrodite for water or something to display healer and maybe some buffing. That's the type of setup I'm talking about. That's the best way to use SSR Diablos if you do have her and you do want to go this route. However, again, I say test things out. Now, typically, that does turn your 3 on element to basically double the damage output compared to everybody else because of the fact that it is giving you special attack, which is in its own multiplier frame. So say you're like me and you have Assault and Vigor on your grid, well, you just got special attack as well, and then you can have access to Elemental. That is 4 separate multipliers, and they can really spike your damage when used right. However, sometimes it is better to still just stick with 5 people on element. And in my case, it definitely is, because I have a strong enough grid to make even a Guardian Idolin be stronger than Monarch Armor. So, that said, again, test it out. In fact, I'm going to have a comparison video whenever I finally get around to doing this. So, look forward to that. Now, as for the rewards, and this is very important. Now, to start off, they are split between personal achievement, union achievement, and then how many times you killed both versions of the Seraph fight. Now, you have to kill the Seraph boss in order to get anything for union participation points. If you want to get the points for that, you have to kill Seraph. If you want to get your own achievement, that's where you can kill Thrones as well. But every other thing on the list, you have to kill Seraph. You have to kill Expert Seraph to get the Expert count, obviously, and then Ultimate Seraph for the Ultimate count. You have to kill either one to get the Union participation, so it's mainly Seraph. The stuff you can get from this is pretty immense, because there's a wide spread of different things you can get. Some of the more important things that you definitely should aim for, definitely the soul points, because these are special soul points. This is also a good time to start stocking up on some SR weapon grails, because these give quite a bit of skill experience. You can get accessories from this as well, but the thing is, with this Phantom one, they are all based off of water or fire. So if you don't care about those two elements for the time being, then that's something you can basically ignore and just use them as fodder. However, those of you that are raising these elements, and that should be most people at this point, considering that raising all 6 of the basic elements is definitely ideal at this point, you may or may not need some of these accessories. Now, the biggest thing, and I've already hinted at it with the rewards for the accessories, is the weapons. The Seraph Union events give weapons that can go from large increase to extra large, or as this game calls it, oversized. Now, that said, it will jump from, like, say you have it at skill level 20, it will jump from 16% assault or defender, it depends on the weapon, and they'll have a maximum increase of 30%. That is very huge, because that is almost 2 large assault weapons or 2 large defender weapons at skill level 20. That's how big that is. Now add on the fact that we've had Union events where there's been fire and water versions of these already. That is 60% with just 2 weapons. That is an amazing boost. Now, that said, it makes it very, very important to actually get these if you're really focused on fire or water. And personally speaking, you should go after these assault ones. The defender ones, not so much, because there's plenty of other sources to get those. However, if you are still like fairly new, you can get the maybe one of the defender weapons, 2 if you're really trying to push it. But just one of them maybe, and you'll be fine for the time being. But these do final break, so you have to final break them in order to increase it from large to extra large. So keep that in mind. Other than that, there is Dragonic Eye Shards in here as well, so those are always useful, especially considering we just recently got an awakening for Nephthys. And I'm actually going to end out the video with covering what she does as well. But those are used for awakenings, they're used for the S-Class souls. You're going to want Dragonic Eyes, especially later on when we actually get access to some very, very powerful weapons, but they will cost 50 Dragonic Eyes to get. It is not cheap, but they are insanely strong with the right grids. They are insanely strong with the right grids. So that's something to consider on that. But sad stuff you can get as well is basically stuff like gems. You can get EXP spears. They're just there. Also, there are ranking rewards for this as well, so keep this in mind. The rankings are based on personal achievement, as in the participation points you get, the ultimate kills, and the expert kills, all in one single day. So if you do like 150 expert kills, and then next day you do 150 ultimate kills, your ultimate kills for the second day is 0. Like, your ultimate kills for the first day is 0, and your expert kills for the second day is 0. It all has to be done same day. So this is why it's kind of important to rack up a lot of different, like, divine rings and whatnot, and then just pick like a day to go after ultimate and then a day to go after expert. That's a typical strategy. Now, for the really, really hardcore unions, you will be doing this for 24 hours. So, good luck on that one. The really, really hardcore unions will definitely try to have as many people as they can on for a full 24 hours. It is an insanely tedious gauntlet if you decide to go after that. However, the rewards on here are actually pretty good, depending on how well you rank, where you'll get more grails, but more importantly, you can get a huge amount of magic jewels, especially from the personal achievement side. And then also Dragonic Eye Shards. You can get up to 1.5 eyes if you're in the top 5 unions that can get ultimate kills. This is the main reason why a lot of people try to really rank up on this. However, I have found out that these ranking systems will change later down the line when we start getting medals for union events as well. So keep that in mind. But the changes, in my opinion, make it kind of worse, but in some cases better. Again, that's a bridge we'll just cross when we get there, but just keep in mind that it's not entirely good, but in some cases it can be. But like I said, this is the weapons that you'll get as well, so there's that as for all this. However, I've noticed that this list does not have the defender-based weapons on here, so if you want defender, you gotta go with the SR ones, unfortunately. The assault ones were more important anyways. But definitely try to get these SSR weapons because they are very, very strong, even if they're one skill, because 30% is a lot. Most stuff did not get access to increases that large. So, anyways, that's it for this. Now, I'm going to do one last thing and cover the new Kamihime that we just got an awakening for. And there is quite a long list of this, because look at all these Kamihime that got awakenings. Like, I have to scroll down this much now. It's incredible. But this is the newest one that we have gotten for an awakening. And this is a very, very strong one. In my personal opinion, I think she looks cuter like this too. I do like the gothic Alita look. But, basically, this is what her skills jump to. Now, her burst will start reducing her ability intervals by 5 turns. That is big. Some of the stuff will be able to be used immediately, and others will get a huge cooldown reduction. So that is going to be very, very good. Now, going into what changes while she's awakened. When her first skill goes from plus to double plus, it gets a damage multiplier increase, which can be anywhere between 6 to 7 times damage. For comparison, Medea has 10 times on her first skill. This is pretty close to that. So that's actually quite a large one. And then you can use it immediately after a burst, regardless of where the cooldown was at. So, done right, you can double cast this. Now, with the second ability, when it goes from plus to double plus, it's going to guarantee critical. As in, Stinger effect, it is going to guarantee it. On top of that, it is going to increase her attack power and up her damage limit. Now, how much damage limit, I don't exactly know. I will scroll down and double check that. But guaranteed critical. Now, remember what I said earlier about how Assault's in 1 multiplier, Vigor's in 1 multiplier, Elemental's in 1 multiplier, and then Special is in 1 multiplier. Well, Stinger's in another multiplier too, so Awaken Nephthys with that strategy would mean 5 potential multipliers. That is insane. Now, this is a very interesting part, which really helped her out quite a lot. Now, before, her third ability only worked against stunned enemies to really increase the damage she deals. Well, now it just straight up increases her burst performance. And I don't know for sure, but this might actually go past the 2 million cap. I had to double check when I scroll down. As for her assist ability, instead of increasing her combo attack on stun enemies, it increases her combo rate based on the number of buffs she has. So if you have a team that can really buff a lot of people, this is going to really up her combo rate, even if you don't even give her a combo buff. So honestly, with the right setup, she might actually have guaranteed combo rate. Now, going into the awakening side of things, also it says it increases her normal attack damage too. For her buff when it goes to plus. Oh no, it just says it changes the burst. But the whole thing with this is the fact that it counts as a special attack buff before it goes into the awakened version. Now it says burst performance is dramatically enhanced. I don't know if this is one of the few cases where you can bypass the original burst cap of 1 million. 2 million if you have enough exceed. But there's that. Even then, you're already upping the damage caps of your stuff as well. Like for instance, when you use her second ability, once it gets upgraded, the damage limit increase will be burst will gain another 250,000. And I do believe that's still under exceed, so it probably wouldn't increase that if you already have max exceed. But her ability, where it had like a 600,000 soft cap, it now has a 750,000 soft cap. And then normal attacks normally have a 350,000 soft cap. Well, she's pushed it to 437,000, around that mark. So that buff is very, very strong. And then on top of that, essentially your damage is boosted by roughly 30%, like the soft caps, and then your attack buff is 75%. That is insanely big. So that said, this is why she's very, very good for awakening, and it is a huge boost to your dark team. So if your dark focus, awaken her. I'm trying to do that too, because I've recently started putting a lot more effort into my dark team, especially since my light team can handle dark content very easily. So that said, awaken her if you're really focused on the dark team. She is very, very strong. Her awakened to Nados, awakened Satan is pretty strong too. Dark is starting to really pick up, especially with some recent additions that they've gotten as well. Dark Sevarog is very strong. But anyways, that's enough of this. This video is going on long enough. Again, you must go after those weapons in Union Event because they are strong, and if you got the ones from previously before, like I said, 60% from just 2 weapons. That's incredible. The fact that you get 60% from 2 weapons and you still have 8 other slots to work with, that is strong. Also, a little side note, somebody mentioned that this was actually hidden text. So anybody with access to this and actually has Google Translate can know what they say during the holidays. Although they don't have it for this side right here for the popularity vote. Probably because of the fact that she wasn't actually around for her awakened version during that, so of course they didn't have it. But they do have different dialogues depending on if they're awakened or not. And you can switch between which forms you want on the main screen too, so you can actually hear them both. But anyways, and also I gotta Gotta point this out because I see it from the comment right here. You can now hit 4 million bursts with her, with that skill. So yes, it does bypass the exceed cap. So that is very big. But anyways, that's all for now, guys. More of this will come soon because, again, I'm going to test things out and try to have a comparison video for it. But anyways, that's all for now, guys. Take care.